Everybody, drop your buffs. We are merged. 13
I've lost
players
some
entering
chips.
the new Lava Tribe, and Robin has some chips with him for the merge feast. What a
I've got
week
my
of
merge
Australian
feast.
Survivor. We are back for week 5, episodes 13 and 14 of the show. Robin, what a week. We saw some of our favorites go home.
We did. Last time I decided to eat on stream. But yeah, we did. We had a you know what? This week to me is all about Mark and Sam. I find that a really interesting story.
Yeah.
Evening, Marcus. Nice to have you back. But yeah, we lost one of the big boys. I didn't think he was going to last this long, and he lasted quite a while.
That's right, and one of our favorites on the show as well. We lost, other than Khan, of course. Mel, unfortunately, lost Mel this week as well. Glad to see her get a confessional, and we'll certainly discuss that throughout the podcast. I'm sure many of you as well would
we'll
be
get to
glad
that.
to see
We'll
her
get to that
get some
later.
airtime.
Yeah, well, look, you know what? Look, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to touch on this now. So, okay, so we know right from the start, Mark has been one of my picks, and this is nothing against Mark. He's no Mr. Charisma on his confessionals. Why didn't we have any, like, and he doesn't need to be. That's the thing. He doesn't need to be a Dave or a Luke. There's no difference between a Mark confessional and we finally saw a Mel and a Michelle confessional. There's no difference.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to get too much into it, but it's great to see everyone get a confessional at least, other than Jay. But certainly Mel and Michelle, a very interesting story there. Mirror twins. Yeah. I think they said the egg split at the last moment, basically. And otherwise, there would have been Siamese twins. I think they have one. Michelle has one fang on her right side, and Mel has one on her left side, I think. Which we didn't learn until the merge. So I wish we'd known earlier, and then we would have known who was who. Jenny, poor Mel was robbed. Horrible edit. She was amazing in her confessional. We deserve more. Yeah, and I do think we did get some entertaining content from Mel finally after 13 long episodes.
Yeah. But it's a bit of a shame, but yeah, them's the breaks, unfortunately. But yeah, there was no reason for it. No reason to not give her some screen time. She was great.
Yeah, and 13 episodes without a confessional and 13 players at the merge. Obviously, we had four pairs entering the merge, I believe it was.
We had Mark, Sam, Geordie, Jesse, John, Jordan, and Josh, and Mel and Michelle.
Yeah, obviously.
Oh, Josh.
We did see
Josh.
There's a Josh. There's a Josh, two Geordies. There is a Jesse. Too many J names.
A bad mistake on casting. Way too many J's.
Yeah, well, hopefully they learn in the future not to cast as many J's and give more M's confessionals. But certainly, yeah, when we got to the merge, it was very interesting to see how the dynamics sort of shook out. But the first thing we will discuss from this week, obviously, was the first reward challenge of the week, first reward challenge after the merge. $60,000, 3 times Geordie and Jesse's paycheck from last year. A huge prize, Robin. And there is a poll in the chat right now. If you guys do want to vote on that, is the Set for Life 60K reward the new car curse? Khan wins the reward. I really did like this challenge as well. Khan ends up winning the reward and is $60,000 richer, or would you say $440,000 poorer?
Look, Khan wasn't winning. He wasn't winning. So this is a massive bonus. He was great, but he wasn't winning.
Yeah.
He was big right from the start. Yeah.
Jenny K. Khan is 60K richer than the eventual runner-up of the season. Lol. Sad runner-up on AU gets no prize money. Yeah, it's another bugbear, which is something else entirely. But certainly, I do think it's an interesting one, because when I saw the $60,000 prize come up for grabs, I've always said if I was on Survivor and there was the car reward, I would always just try and throw it. I'd be like Brian Heidick trying to spell road trip wrong. And throw it as much as I can, because we've seen him in US and Australian Survivor. The winner of the car award obviously has never won the game.
Have
winning
they got 60K, to the end? Have they got to a final tribal?
Yeah, well, of course, Boston Rob won in Survivor All Stars. Colby Donaldson in Survivor the Australian Outback. But certainly no one has won from the car award. But 60K, obviously, it's a massive prize, a
It's
great
great.
prize. But it sets a massive target on your back.
Yeah. And I think this is why Khan was never winning right from the start. Khan played strong. Khan played bold, but at the end of the day, he didn't understand how to manage his threat meter. His threat meter was always really high right from the get-go, which is great. Look, I love that. I love that he came in and played the game. Unfortunately, we have the boys club that aren't playing the game to some degree. They're playing the safe game. Khan never was playing the safe game. And he had an idol. He's had an idol, a public idol for a long time, holding on to it. He's given up an immunity. He's won 60K. He's won individual immunities, won rewards. Hear me or do anything? Am I back?
You're back.
Am I
You're
here?
back. I think it might have been my stream that dropped. The technical issues at the moment. It's obviously a little bit wet.
Internet.
It's a little bit wet in Australia, so I do think that might have something to do with it. A little bit wet and windy. And wishing everyone in Northern New South Wales and Queensland, of course, safety at the the moment. Not fun at all. Seeing what's going on up there. Terrible floods at the moment.
But hopefully we'll get through the stream.
That's right. We'll see how we go. But certainly with the reward challenge, it is a traditional Survivor challenge, I would say. Obviously, we see it a lot in the US Survivor. Normally spelling out a word, usually Final Four or something like that with blocks. This year, though, we get an interesting variation, and I actually prefer this variation. It's a puzzle, a pyramid, a lot harder to balance, a lot harder to figure out. What do you think about this variation to the challenge? I quite liked it.
Yeah, I liked it as well. I like the, because we usually see it and you're going pretty much either you're going across ways or you're building up. I feel like there are some that build up, but it's usually just the word, like you said, across. The pyramid is that nice little challenge, that nice little addition. And again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel sometimes, but sometimes you can tweak it just that fraction and it changes it. It makes it that little bit more interesting. And I thought it was great.
That's right. And I think this week, actually, I mean, it was basically the same twist in every single challenge with, the table leveling actually tipping if you don't pay enough attention that we saw across a couple of challenges this week. But certainly, I do like how they are adding in different dynamics to the challenges this year from what we've seen so far. And for Khan, obviously, as we said, he manages to win that reward challenge. It does put a massive target on his back. When we return to camp, obviously, as a merged tribe,
and he's already got
13,
a big one.
That's right. Yeah, Khan does already have a big target on his back. But when we get to camp, Mark obviously puts a target. Geordie puts a target on Mark's back, telling his brother all about Mark's idol and discussing the next moves to come from this.
Well, this is, isn't it? When he first found the idol and Geordie found out, Mark instantly went, "I've got a loose thread. Geordie is a loose thread, and I'm going to have to deal with that." And he hasn't dealt with it. And now we've come to merge. Geordie has told Jesse. Geordie has told Sam. Geordie has told Josh. Josh will most likely tell Jordan if he hasn't already told Jordan. I think he did tell Jordan. It's like, so now that one loose thread has become an absolute disaster for having this hidden idol. This idol that could have been really strong.
Yeah, and that's right. You did mention there, Mark's management of his idol hasn't been the best. And we have been one to critique it. But certainly with what Geordie did reveal, obviously revealing it to his brother, you did mention there, he also revealed it to Sam, who was not privy to the information at all. Obviously very pissed off that she wasn't clued in on this idol that Mark had. You would think that the blood would run deep in this game. But Mark, seemingly when Sam approached him, did not seem to be too fussed about not telling her.
Yeah. Well, what we're seeing, unless it's a big act. To be honest with you, I am not against him. Hopefully, this is coming through. I see I've lost Riley and myself, but I'm back. Yeah. So Mark, I don't mind. I don't mind the fact that he doesn't tell Sam. Like, I really
Mm.
don't. I'm okay with this. But this is the fine balance of blood versus water. The element of blood really it does make things so much more complex. And look, he would have told her eventually, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not against it.
Yeah, it's I look, I do agree. I'm not against the move, but certainly for Sam to hear that from someone else, it really does misplace your level of trust, and
Yeah,
it
that's the
is something
problem.
we'll see throughout these two episodes. Really, Sam was a little bit on the outer, and I do worry as to where she really stands in the game at this point. She might. It feels like she's drifting away a little bit from Mark. She wants to stay close with him in the game and work alongside him, but certainly that grasp in the game seems to be slipping from Sam a little bit.
And this is the problem. Like, not the problem, but this is the biggest part of, for me, the relationship between these two, Mark and Sam, is I find really fascinating of these two episodes. Like I said, she is
Mm,
drifting by, but at the same time, both tribals, she had the power. She was in with the position to retain some form of control, some form of power, and she
yeah,
refused both times. She had opportunities. Why didn't she take
yeah,
them?
and I think part of that might be again the reason for Mark not showing Sam the idol at first. He did mention, last time we were obviously had a massive target put in our back because everyone knew we were the power couple, and he thought it might be something similar here. If people find out about this idol, we're going to be targeted straight out of the bat,
Mhm.
and we kind of need to play this slow. In my mind, it still doesn't excuse him for not telling his wife that he had an idol, but certainly I do think it is right to lay low for Mark a little bit and for Sam as well, not to flip the carriage too much and change things around. Um, but
So with this
it
first
is
vote
certainly
though,
a tough position to be in.
she didn't she could have, like, this is the problem I have, like, with the communication. She wanted Shay. Mark
Hmm.
wants Mark wants Khan with the split
Hmm.
on Mel. There is a way to come out and go, look, can we at least change the split to Shay? There was a middle ground here that I don't know why that didn't happen. I don't know why it was all one way. The end result's the same. Move, then eventually Hope can't. So she sticks to the plan. She does everything she's told to do, and then Khan plays his idol, and she still keeps Khan. Shay goes, and it's not as, that's the risk of splitting this vote. And I think Shay probably would have been a better split.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, after the results of episode 14, it probably would have been the better split.
Yeah.
But certainly, I think I'm not sure Mark is the one. Mark seems to be controlling this alliance of six at the moment. Of the six strong boys being, of course, Geordie and Jesse, Jordan and Josh, himself, and I think David's the other one in that
Yeah, Dave's
alliance
the
as
loose
well.
one. Yeah.
But certainly, I think it was more a consensus to get rid of Mel. Obviously, the six guys being strong, not wanting to point. It was probably a defensive move on their part, not to paint the target on Shea, so as not to get a target pointed on them later for being challenge beasts.
Yeah.
I do think there was probably that sort of consensus around camp,
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
to not put Shea on the chopping block just yet. And of course,
But
Mel
they
is a loose cannon. She doesn't really have anyone in the game.
they just had Shay on the chopping block the night before merge.
Yeah.
This is what I don't. They that was the threat, and they take her off for someone who, in my opinion, great. She had a great little. She did try really hard the next episode, but when they call them floaters, like, poor Mel has been on the bottom. She had
Hmm.
a great relationship from the small amount we got to see with her and Sandra. We don't, obviously we don't know enough, so it's hard to tell. But from my perspective, Mel and Michelle aren't floaters; they're bottom feeders, and they're a
Yeah.
number to use.
Yeah, and yeah, certainly not bottom feeders in a negative way. But yeah,
Oh, no, no, no,
you're
not
right.
no.
Those, yeah, I know, I know. It's yeah, those loose ties that can really go any which way. And of course, Mel and Michelle are a package deal. That's two
That's
votes
the
you
only thing.
potentially
It's just
got,
2
which
votes.
makes it so much
But
stronger.
I mean, when they voted together, and again, it was probably irrelevant. They still vote a
Hmm.
Geordie and a Josh. They still,
Hmm.
and I think Michelle was like, keep her, I won't keep her. And
And we'll definitely get to Mel and Michelle later in the episode and discuss that vote where Mel was voted out. But obviously, Mark pinned a big target on Khan's back. Once again, he says, oh, what does Khan mean in Arabic, Robin? Do you know?
King Khan.
King. Okay,
Yeah.
I never would have known that. I hadn't heard it at all on the show
Mhm.
throughout the season. It never came across. Certainly
Oh,
Mark
he said
was
that a couple of
fixated on
times.
this idea of getting
Mark
rid
said
of the
that at the
king.
start. Yeah, said that right at the start. He was wanting to get. He's been wanting to get rid of Khan because of that for quite some time now. Great.
That's
Look,
right. Yeah,
great to get rid of
Mark has been fixated on Khan, and as we mentioned before, he does have a massive target on his back. Winning this 60K, having an idol in his pocket. He is again probably the godfather at this point in terms of dictating the vote, cutting throats.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, he doesn't have a tie in the game, so I do think it was the right time to target Khan. And as you mentioned before, certainly, yeah, the idea of splitting the vote is always going to be the way to go when it comes to trying to
Mhm.
get rid of someone with an idol. But
Would you
certainly,
know?
I think the right time to get rid of him.
Yeah, look, like I said, I honestly thought the right time was ages ago. I felt like I would have got rid of Khan quite a while ago. He got further than I thought he would, but that goes to show he had a really strong social game. It's definitely not a bad move to get rid of Khan at all. He was a high threat, and was
Mm,
just playing great. He was playing a really strong game, like not a perfect game. He wasn't, like I said, not managing that threat level, but he was playing a really strong game. And he's definitely building a great resume, which is the talk,
yeah.
always the talk, the resume, the resume, the resume.
Yeah, that's right. And Khan certainly has been a strong character this
Yeah.
season. The first individual immunity challenge of the season, similar to a classic, holding the water bucket above your head.
Hmm.
35% of everyone's body weight they were holding. Shea, though, unexpectedly dropped out of the challenge after getting a little bit distracted by looking at KJ. And I
Yeah.
must say, it was down between KJ and Jesse in the end. But KJ, gosh, she put in a big fight.
Oh, she
She
did
was very
great. She did
impressive.
amazing. Yeah. It's almost like, I'm sure she's proud of it, but I know deep down she would have been so shattered. She got so close. And,
Yeah.
like shit, she wanted to do it for kids, and her kids are going to be proud. We know this, but God, you're right there, and there's a lot on the line. And she just, that's something you just want to take away with you. I know if I got to that position, it's hard to not be that little bit crushed.
Yeah,
She got
but
so close.
of course. I mean, we saw that with Khan last week, really just wanting to win a challenge on Survivor,
Yeah.
and obviously giving his immunity away to Sam in that instance. But for KJ, there was no way she would outlast Jesse. Jesse is just a
No.
beast. Of course, he is an endurance athlete back home,
Yeah.
and he doesn't have too much weight to him as well. He's not a
No.
traditionally muscular guy. He's a lean
Yeah.
endurance runner, so he's not going to have too much weight. And of course, he has the stamina to go through the challenge. Of course, we I think last week I was
Yeah.
saying it'd be
And
Geordie
I
or
think
Jesse
I
who will be the first to go home.
yeah.
You might. Did you say Khan?
What did I say, Khan?
Did you say
When?
Khan last week would be the person to go at the
No,
merge?
no, no. I said Geordie. I said if you were smart, you'd take out Geordie.
Yeah, but yeah, obviously Jesse won the individual immunity challenge. Putting Shea on the chopping block, as we did discuss before. Shea, someone who has proven strong in the challenges. She was, she's been really the strongest female throughout the season, almost a Brooke Jowett 2.0.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember a couple of people in the comments last week did say that, yeah, if you're smart, you get rid of Shea at this point, and that was certainly
But
the line that Sam was pushing.
but the problem with what Sam starts to push is where Shay sits on the tribe, right? What you end up doing by to get, we need to get from an audience person from perspective anyway. I start to see that we already got Shea. She's on the bottom. She's lost Ben. She doesn't really fit in with any alliance. You're giving her the underdog storyline. So if Shea gets to the end and you weren't able to get her out because you were so obsessed with trying to get her out, she comes out so much stronger. She ends up having almost the final tribal speech on a silver platter because you've been, and like
Yeah.
for weeks you've been trying to get her out. So yes, get rid of her. You got to get rid of her, but you can't make it about her because then you make her so much stronger. And if you don't get her out, which could happen, she could go on, like she probably won't, but she definitely could. She could get to the end on immunities. And because you've made it such a big deal, we've got to get her, we got to get her, we can't get her because she keeps winning. She almost walks away with the money and the
Yeah.
title.
And I don't think she'll continue to win immunities. I think she's definitely not going to do a Colby Donaldson or a Terry Deets all the way
Yeah,
to the end.
it's
But
very hard to do.
I can see Shea slipping through and making it through to the end at this point. I really do see her as being someone who will go deep in the game. Of course, she was my winner pick, so I'm a little bit biased in that sense.
Yeah.
But certainly, yeah, of course, Sam was pushing to get rid of Shea. Mark, of course, wanted Khan gone, and this power group of six, the strong six, the six men on the tribe, wanting to get rid of Mel at this point in the game.
Yeah. I missed what you said.
Yeah, Mel, of course, the split vote was on Mel as a contingency that did Khan play the idol, Mel would be the one to go, just split up the twins' power, which I didn't think the twins held that much power in the game, but as I think we alluded to before, they have some ties in the game, and they are obviously social players, but certainly I wouldn't say the power players at the moment.
No, so that's the thing. Like, I think I still would have probably split with Shea in that regards because she messed up. She didn't win immunity because she messed up. If she didn't lose focus, there's a high chance she would have beaten Jesse. Personally, I think she probably could have. And it's one of these things that these challenges, a lot of the challenges start to have a great uh, the females who are those strong athletic females do have that little upper advantage for these individual immunity challenges. So she is, you'd be wary. So like I said, I don't, from what we were seeing or what was shown, I just can't think that Mal and Michelle had that much pull to be worried and concerned to worry about to split the two of them up.
Yeah, and I do think with what you were saying before, it is an interesting predicament. I lost my train of thought. With the where was I going with this thought?
I don't know. We're having some internet troubles, but we're getting there. We're getting through this.
No, with the split vote, here we are. Here's my thought. Certainly, the women probably had the power to take over the game. Obviously, with 13 players, we did have 7 guys, but Khan was someone that was very close with Sam at that point in the game. And, while obviously I think it is the right time to strike against Khan, they certainly had the power at that point to potentially bring someone over and, try and make a move against Shea. If Sam did pull in Mel, Michelle, KJ, she seemed to have Geordie and Jesse in her pocket more so than Mark had Geordie and Jesse. They really could have got rid of Shea at that point.
I reckon there was an opportunity. I reckon there was something Sam could have done, but she didn't want to go against Mark. She didn't want to break the husband-wife combo that they've got going, and I get that. So that's the really tricky situation with what we have here. That blood versus water element, the blood element, just in a regular moment, if someone is saying this is what we're doing, you're not. No, that's not how it goes. But there was no potential way to move for her, which was a bit of a shame because of the relationship she has with Mark. But surely there was stuff to do, and that's why I don't think if she really wanted Khan to stay, it was so easy to kind of let it slip that you might be on play your idol and be none the wiser and let Khan just do that naturally. Like we've seen that done many a times. That it looks like they play it like, what was it? Was it season 39 where we had no idea? Like it was all. They had no idea what was happening, and they just played the idol on the right person, but they had the right information. Was that 39?
With Dean? Yeah, Kelly planned the idol for Dean, or giving the idol to Dean. That was a different situation. But you're right. It isn't hard for someone like Chrissy just to blurt out, "Oh, to Khan, you might be on the chopping block. I'm worried. You
Yeah.
have to play idle tonight because the guy's going after you." That's not something that's
Yeah,
too
there was an
difficult to do.
option. No. So why? I don't know why they didn't. They had an opportunity.
Yeah, and I do think it's just Sam not wanting to rub Mark the wrong way,
Yeah.
which is it's a hard position to be in because Sam did say she doesn't feel good about being used as a pawn in the game,
But she was the whole
and
week.
that's right, that's right. She was used as a pawn, and they were really Mark was using her as a number. When I do think the option was there, especially if Sam wants to strengthen her game. Um,
Yeah.
and I do think this might be the turning point for Sam's game, and it might tip the scales in favor of Mark. Whereas I think Sam was playing a better social game beforehand. I think
Mm-hmm,
Mark is
mm-hmm.
now taking the upper hand simply because he has got these guys, whereas Sam doesn't have as much power in those relationships. She
And
lost the
she's lost her
opportunity
too.
then. She lost the opportunity to get Mel, Michelle, Chrissy, Khan, all these
Yeah.
loose screws into an
Yeah.
alliance, and
Yeah.
not so much take control from her husband and get her husband out of the game, but
No, no,
certainly be the
no.
one that's in the driving seat with the majority alliance.
Yeah. That's the funny thing. It's like she doesn't want to lose Khan because she's so close with Khan, because that's a real, like, Khan's almost in, like, oh, she's kind of actually more in Khan's pocket because Khan gave the idol
Mm.
up. But there's such a close relationship there that you don't have to use it forever, but it's got a bit of legs. Mel and Michelle, they have no one. Chrissy got no one. Shea, no one. Like, these are the people that are on the bottom that will be picked off, which they probably won't be because something's going to happen and the boys should fall to pieces. But
Yeah, of
the
course.
point is, you had this opportunity to get some control, and you've lost Khan now, so you've lost your number one, because even though you say Jesse's your number one, Jesse's number one is Geordie, straight up. Like, your
Yeah.
number one is technically Mark.
Yeah, but
So
Sam
she's.
Sam did say Jesse is her number one at this point in the game, not Mark, especially after finding out about that idol.
I know, but she also doesn't understand that that's not reciprocated. Jesse
Hmm.
is with Geordie. Like, that, straight up. Geordie and Jesse are wanting to fly. And we
Yeah,
start to see a bit of that. They want to play. They
yeah,
would
but
have gone for Mark.
they're not with Mark. So I do think it was an option there for Sam. Obviously, it's all in retrospect now.
Of course.
But I think we see early in the next episode after Khan is voted out. Of course, Khan doesn't play his idol in the end,
Mhm.
and he goes home, becoming the first member of the jury. Um, we do see that Geordie starts to think about getting rid of Josh, and I do wonder, is that 2 days too late now? Because as we were saying, Sam probably had the
Mhm.
ability to let slip that Khan had an idol, and I mean, you can go for Shea, or you can bring Shea in as a number and go for
Yeah.
someone like Josh.
Yeah.
I think Sam had a lot more options than just staying in lockstep with Mark.
Exactly. That she had options both days. So many
Hmm.
options both days, and let all these options go. And
Yeah,
look, I still think I think Mark's going to benefit from Mel and Michelle. I think Mel and Michelle, Josh and Geordie vote. Really, again, the heat isn't on Mark. The heat now goes on I feel like Josh and Geordie's name being both thrown out does really take that off Mark a little bit and keeps Mark safe. But it could have gone any way. And Geordie did want to go for Mark, and now wants to go for Josh. I like how he's thinking. He's just, yeah, he just not. He's unable to execute these plans.
yeah. I mean, it is very tricky with blood versus water, of course, because
Yeah,
I mean, we saw with Sam, as we discussed, she had the option to go away from Mark, but she decided to stay and vote with him. And I do think that's, I mean, in reality, in the game, you're playing with your loved one, you're probably going to be
yeah,
an unbreakable alliance, and you're not going to work against them.
yeah,
Even though it could get you close to $500,000. But certainly, I think it is difficult for a Jordan and a Jesse to make big moves when they're not a loose cannon, and they do have this. It's a three-legged race at this point. You're tied to someone
yeah,
else, and you're reliant on them to drag the chain as well, so you don't fall over.
yeah, yeah. It's just interesting because I really think, yeah, unfortunately for Geordie, Jesse being close with Sam leads the Mark too close with Mark. So to get Mark was a little bit tricky. And again, unfortunately, and this is where I really like Josh's thought process here. When Geordie goes and tells Josh about the idol, and Josh ends up going, well, yeah, I didn't know that, but
Mm.
you want to keep that secret because you do. I get so frustrated sitting at home when people get so offended that they didn't get told this person had the hidden immunity idol. It's a hidden immunity idol. They don't need to tell you. What is this thing that we've started to develop that just because you're in an alliance, you should know about what's going on? You don't need to know.
Yeah. I mean,
And I
I
like,
I I think, yeah, and that's right. That was Mark's point at the end of the day. But I
yeah.
do feel like with Mark and Sam kind of needs to know about that.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah.
too much information not to share.
Oh, I would have shared it with my loved one. Sure, like, and it's unfortunate for Sam. Like, I'm sure Mark probably would have at a certain time,
Mm.
but that loose thread got the best of him. The loose
Yeah.
and for me, if I was Mark, as soon as I found out that Geordie has told Sam, that's another alarm bell for me.
Hmm.
You're done. I'm not working with Geordie because I cannot. Why
Yeah.
would he do that?
And I do want to discuss exactly that point after we've discussed this second episode of the week,
Yeah.
because it is going to be very shaky going forward. And I do think Mark Seidel is going to be, the tank that he drives into the game and
Yeah.
uses it as a weapon to
I hope so.
further consolidate his power in the game because
Yeah.
he's going strong at the moment and no one seems to be touching him. And
Yeah.
obviously that Geordie threat could be very real. But to the immunity challenge, it again is uh, similar to another Survivor Classic. Obviously,
Hmm.
the fast fire making challenge where you have to get water out of the ocean, put it in a barrel with holes in it, and
Yeah.
scale so you can get your fire to the top. Similar to that, but in
Yeah.
this instance, it has a different dynamic, which I found quite interesting. And it took me a while to figure out the strategy, but then towards the end, I realized, okay, that's a strategy we'll go with, and I'll discuss that once we explain the concept of the challenge. But yeah, essentially, the table will remain level once your barrel is full enough and the weight is heavy enough. But then, as the water obviously flows out of the barrel, it then begins to tip over. So you've got this question of how long do you take to solve the puzzle, and how often do you go back to the ocean?
Hmm.
I'm interested to know, Robin, you're doing this challenge. What's your strategy here in terms of trying to keep the barrel and the puzzle afloat?
My strategy straight off out of my head was I'm filling that bucket up and then I'm filling that barrel up. And then once I feel like that barrel's up, I'm going for an extra pail of water and I'm going to let it sit
Hmm.
there. So I want it
Yep.
right there on me. And then
Yep.
I'm doing the puzzle. And if it's going, I can just dump it straight in. And because if I'm so close, I just have a dump and I have to put the last little piece together. Then I feel like I always want a close barrel when I thought about
Yep.
it. So
That's
that
right.
was my
And
thought.
that's, yeah. And I thought the exact same. Because we did see, I think it was Mark or Shea or someone, when it was tipping over, they sort of tried to splash whatever was left in their barrel,
Whatever leftover bit.
in their
Yeah.
bucket rather. I'm not sure if that is within the rules, but certainly if it is a genius idea. To just to have that barrel bucket on standby,
Stand by.
pour in the barrel, and then I just go straight back to the surf, fill up, depending on
100%.
how empty
How
your
close
bucket
you
was,
are.
how
Yeah.
close to the end you were. But certainly, I found, yeah, the predominant strategy there is obviously get as much done of the puzzle as you can, and try
Yeah.
and make sure that barrel is basically full at all times.
Yeah.
Because it did catch a couple of people, but of course the major threat in the game, who Sam really wanted to get rid of in
Mhm.
case of this scenario, Shea. She won individual immunity, and
Which
it means that
strengthens
Shea is
Shea
Shea
even
is
more.
safe for another day.
Yeah. Strengthens, this is the thing, gives her the underdog story. If Shea goes all the way, Sam has really helped give her $500,000 because
Mark,
it's
I,
this
I
sort of
would
like,
say I would say Mark has helped, and
yeah.
Khan, and
Well,
everyone
yeah,
else
but
in the
yeah,
game.
yeah, and everyone else, but it's just when you put such a focus on this thing, I feel like the focus is where, she can win challenges and and she won't win them all. We know it's a really hard slog, and they're not always going to be that um sided towards that endurance and that athleticism that she brings to the table. Um, but yeah, she wins again, and now she's that little bit stronger. I told you, and Sam comes home and says, "I told you we should have got her. Look what happened. See, this
Hmm.
is what happened." And now by her saying that, strengthens her even more, strengthens Shay to go even further. And if she wins another one, and she's going to get no, just let her win. It doesn't matter that she won. Like if you don't make it an issue, she doesn't stay as powerful as you make her. It's
Yep.
crazy.
Yep. That is a valid point. Yeah, of course, if you don't pin a target on them and you really consider them as a non-factor,
Yeah,
then yeah,
doesn't
they don't
matter.
carry any currency in the game. I mean, you look at
Yeah,
Xander in Survivor 41. I think it got to a point where no one was looking at him as a threat, regardless of the fact he had an idol and he had so much ammunition. But
yeah,
because no one saw him as a threat at the end of the day, he had no reason to win the game. Um,
yeah.
but I don't think it works in an instance like Shea's, because I do think
No.
Shea can carry that, especially in Australian Survivor. I think people would prefer the underdog,
Yeah, but that's the
over
thing. She's made them the underdog. Sam's made her
that's.
more of an underdog than she is. We know she's a physical threat. We've known right from the start. She won that first individual immunity when it wasn't a merged tribe. She's
Mhm.
dominated. We know, we can see from a mile away that she's a physical threat. You're making her an underdog now. You're making her more
Yeah.
likable for us. We love the
Yeah,
underdog.
I think for Shea, regardless, there always would have been an underdog story there, of course, with the Benny being
Yes,
cut and
of
her
course.
being on the bottom of the tribe. But you're right. It is sort of uh, putting fuel in the fire and really
Hmm.
flaming up the enemy, to make
Yeah,
them, a bigger target, but then again also a bigger underdog, as you say.
yeah.
Certainly, Sam, now that Shay is off the chopping block, she believes that Josh is the mastermind of the men's six alliance
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
wants to try and get Josh out of the game. But of course, Robin, at this point, she doesn't have any numbers really, because she's just got rid
She's
of
kind
her
of lost it.
closest ally
Yeah.
and can't.
She lost it. I just want to tap on one thing before I jump onto that. With this immunity challenge that we just went past, I really enjoyed it, but I also hated it at the same time. That because it's just fair. It's not an even playing field.
Hmm.
Some people can't run up and back as fast. You know, it really like, and maybe that's the game. Maybe I just got to let go of that. Some challenges are just going to favor other
It's the
people.
same as
It's the
obstacle
game.
courses and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
It's
that's
yeah.
true. I got to let it go. Yeah, back to her. She's lost Khan, and that's okay. There's still a chance here. I mean, we see it with Mel and Michelle.
Yeah,
They put the plan out there. They say we know threats. Why come for us? Why come for us?
that's right. And yeah, why is the vote split between Mel and Michelle? Why are Mel and Michelle being seen
Yeah,
as this big target? I mean,
yeah.
we don't know because we haven't seen any of it.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
certainly, I mean, it is. I mean, with Mark being in the driver's seat, really, Shay's been taken off the table now. I think they see Chrissy as someone who isn't really considered as a big game player simply because she doesn't have that currency in the game. She doesn't have the relationships.
Yeah,
So I don't think
yeah,
she's as much of a target. I do think they see Mel and Michelle as being, obviously they're still a pair in the game, which is a threat.
and they know the
But I think
game.
they also see, yeah, they see them as being people who know the game, and that
Yeah.
probably makes them a bigger threat. And of course, they're not in that six alliance, so
Hmm.
I kind of do see why they're targeting Mel and Michelle. But it is a shame that Sam, Geordie, and Jesse couldn't really rally in numbers to change that vote and flip it against someone like a Josh or a David.
And you know what? Like, my God, it's so hot in this room. Sorry. Look at me. I am sweating. I'm just sweating here. But
Try being on Cloncurry in the Outback.
this is true. This is true. But they're not filming a podcast.
They're filming a
um,
TV show.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So Geordie throws the Mark out, and he really wants to get Mark here and goes to get Josh on board. Geordie wants to play the game. Geordie wants to shake things up.
Hmm.
Just because you want Mark gone doesn't mean you don't need to get rid of Josh either. Having this
Yeah.
vote, having the girls go, hey, why get rid of us? What about Josh? We want to get rid of Josh. You can take that element of going, well, as long as it isn't me, great. I actually don't want this boys club to keep on going for too much longer. This is a perfect opportunity to change things up. Next week I'll get Mark. Let it go.
Yeah. And
Jump on the Josh.
I almost feel like the perfect target would have been someone like a David. If you get Mel and Michelle, if you're Sam, Geordie, and Jesse, let's say, or
Yeah.
let's say you're Sam, you get Mel and Michelle on board, as well as Shay and Chrissy, and you say, okay, let's do a girls thing. I can see this group of six guys really starting to develop a stranglehold on the game. That's
Hmm.
six already, which is a 6-6 split. You can either bring it to tribal council, and keep it mum. They split the vote, and then you get a 6-3-3 split,
Yeah.
which I think is the less likely option. Or you keep it 6-6. Obviously, they put 6 votes on Mel, and then the rest goes elsewhere. You get a revote, and then you appease to a Geordie or a Jesse and say, "Hey, look, we need to make a big move here." Or Sam pulls out the puppy dog eyes and says to her husband, "We need to get rid of David at this point in the game."
I don't think that works on Mark, though. She tried twice.
I want that level of trust. I think that David is someone that isn't tied in a pair, which is important. Geordie and Jesse obviously have somewhat of a relationship with Josh. So I don't think there's that element of wanting to get rid of them at that point. And then again, I think for Mark, it doesn't really hurt him at the end of the day because he still has Sam. I think that would have been the pitch I would have gone with if I was in Sam's shoes.
So you wouldn't have tried to take David, who is the bottom of that alliance? Dave's 100% the bottom of the alliance.
I think David was pretty locked in. If anyone, I was going to target Geordie or Jesse. I think Geordie or Jesse are the two on the bottom there. And you can pull over someone like a Geordie or a Jesse because they want to make big moves. And while they are a part of that big six, I mean, all you have to do is just say, we're going to Rocks. And I don't care what's going to happen. You really put that threat out there, make sure people know. And I think that's the way I would approach it. I would put the target on David, who is someone we haven't heard of.
Yeah, he's vanished for a while. But you're like, very easy to put the target on him, and probably a better move than trying to pull him across, because Dave doesn't understand the game. Dave feels to me much like an Andrew from last season who doesn't know what's going on and just doesn't understand the strategic elements behind it. So he's going to be in this alliance and he's going to be happy. And to flip on that, I just don't think he would. Anyone else would have been fine, but Dave on the bottom, Dave's just going to be on the bottom. He's going to be on the bottom until he's not on the bottom and he's on the jury. That's it for Dave, and he doesn't understand that there's chance. And
David said that really up after episode 3. I think after Brianna went home, he said, "I'm only out here for my daughter. I only did Survivor to play because she wanted to play." I think it's a lot easier to convince him to get out of the game. But Mel and Michelle being the split vote here, Mel and Michelle, they believe the split vote is on Jordan and Josh. Ultimately, though, when we go to tribal council,
that's why they've split. Gotcha.
Mel, of course, Mel puts out a big case to get rid of Josh, but ultimately, no one seems to be playing at this point.
So the Geordie vote is there because they thought they were going to split it.
Correct.
They thought, why would they split?
A split vote is always safe, and they thought they had Sam, Shea, Chrissy.
Yeah, but if you were doing a proper blindside and a proper switch, the other side is splitting. Their numbers, they're already split. So you should stack together to go all in and make that blindside happen, because the boys club is sitting pretty. They don't know anything's changing. Yeah. They think everyone's stepping in line.
I thought it was Jordan and Josh, but it's Geordie, Jesse's brother, and Josh that were the split vote, which makes less sense to me. I would think you pick one of the pairs to split the vote between, but obviously not in this case, because Mel, rightfully so, tried pushing the agenda to get rid of Josh at Tribal Council, but ultimately no one was really on board. I do think Michelle probably knew at the end of the day that that Mel was going home and she didn't have the power to get rid of Josh in the game. But you're right. If you are Mel and Michelle, you probably do stack the votes on Josh and get rid of him.
Yeah, there's no need to split when you have the other alliance splitting, because that just, they're splitting, they're weakening their power because their votes are Mel and Michelle. Cool. Take that. Let them be Mel and Michelle. 3-3. That means there's more chance. There's more. You don't need all 6, because if the 6 split 3-3, you could literally outdo them with a 4. Like, you don't. Yeah, the splitting just. To blindside that, I just think the split's silly.
Yeah, and 674993132 here. That'd be a pretty number for a split vote. Reminds me of the Survivor Borneo merge vote. She only took a stand when her game was on the line. She didn't commit to anyone before this, so she hadn't built up loyalty or past credit. So I can understand people not making the move with her. And that's right. I mean, from what we've seen at least, or
it's hard to know. It's hard to know because we saw nothing. We saw nothing.
It does seem as though Mel and Michelle weren't as clued into the game. They weren't. I mean, obviously they were basically floaters at the end of the day.
They were on the bottom. That's
sitting,
what I said.
sitting in the middle.
They were sitting in the bottom.
They didn't have any social currency in the game. And I think that is right. That is probably the thing that went against them at the end of the day, is just not having that power in the game and relationships to shift the vote. Whereas, of course, Geordie and Jesse have that locked in partnership, and
Yeah.
it's a lot harder, I think, for Mel and Michelle to make
And
those moves.
I think that's the problem with the scramble. We got to scramble it. There's
Yeah,
no if you scramble, you need to be playing from day one, and you can't just be sitting back.
yeah,
Whether they were or weren't, we don't actually know, but it looks like it from a viewer perspective. It looked like they were playing a bit more of a kind, passive social game. And
mhm,
I think we hear a bit of that they are friendly with everyone. They're nice. They're polite. You get along with them. Great,
yeah,
but
yeah,
you can when you come like there was times to make moves. Why don't you want to make moves? They know the game. As far as I know, I think Mel knows the game more than Michelle because she said at the end she's
mhm.
devastated that Michelle lasts longer than her.
Got
I don't
further.
know. I
Yeah,
don't um it's going to go further. But you should know if you know the game, you will not win if you just float in the background. You can
yeah.
quite easily get taken to the end, but you end up getting no votes. So why do you even want that? Go out with a bang.
Yeah, and as Jenny said earlier, you don't get any money for as the runner up. You get
Yeah, yeah,
60K
yeah. You get
if you
nothing.
can't, but not as the runner up. But I do think it's hard for in their position, obviously, because we don't know where they stand in the game, and I think it is harder to say, when in the early game you haven't had that ability to build relationships at the swap, they didn't really have that chance to play with their loved ones and actually build relationships in the game. I think they were one of the only pairs that really didn't have any crossover throughout the game.
Hmm.
So it was going to be hard for them. But yeah, ultimately at the end of
But
the day, I think
but
Mel.
for Mel's been on the bottom. She said she's been getting votes for the last four tribals. Why? I don't want to be getting votes. If I'm
Yeah,
getting votes, I need to change up my game.
yeah, but I don't think there was any room for Mel to change up her game. I think, like David, she's someone that's just not really being considered as a game player at that point, and no one wants to
But
play
that's
play with her.
why.
No one wants to vote with her because people
If she
don't view
starts
her
to come
as
up,
being a big game player.
then she wasn't a threat. Why are we
Yeah,
splitting them? It's
it's
it's so weird. It's just
yeah. I mean,
from the
I
edit, from what we've seen, it's so weird.
I think at the end of the day, it was the easiest vote that wasn't going to affect anyone, wasn't going to offend anyone. That I think it probably
Or
was.
offend anyone that matters because they're on the bottom.
Well, you could say that. I think Michelle. Yeah, where does she
Because
stand in the
you're
game?
gonna
I don't
upset
know
Michelle.
because I
You've
saw
upset Michelle.
Mel as being the one who probably had the better relationships, but again, we haven't seen much at all. Um,
Yeah.
and it leaves us now with three pairs and four singles left in the
Hmm.
five
Hmm.
singles. Sorry, forgetting KJ there. So the singles left in the game, we have Shea, Chrissy, David, KJ, and Michelle. And for the pairs, we got the brothers Jesse and Geordie, cousins Jordan and Josh, and husband and wife duo Mark and Sam. Of course, Mark has that idol in the game. Um, we mentioned this earlier, and I want to bring it up now. uh, Geordie and Jesse revealing to Sam that Mark has the idol. Um, we identified this earlier. Geordie and Jesse could be a loose cannon at this point. Mark might want to get rid of them. I think with Mark having the idol, obviously he has that safety for at least one tribal council. I think Geordie or Jesse, and I know I said it last week that Geordie or Jesse will go home. I think
Oh,
this is the week where they will meet
hold
their
on. I think I've
maker,
lost
and we're going to
sound.
see one of them voted out.
Keep going. I'll just pretend I'm listening. Um,
Uh,
you just keep
I think
talking to the viewers, and
we
I'll
lost
see what's
Robin there.
going on with my sound.
But certainly, yeah, Geordie.
It's-
Geordie appears to be a big threat at the moment, telling Mark that telling Sam rather that Mark has the idol. It does put Geordie in a dangerous position right now, and Jesse as well for that matter. Being challenge beasts, I do wonder whether the writing is on the wall for them. When we look at the other singles, though, obviously we know Chrissy doesn't really have any relationships in the game at this point. She rubbed a lot of people the wrong way after her reaction to Croc going home. Are you back now, Robin? Still lost him. I thought we had him there for a second. David, again, as we mentioned before, that doesn't have anyone in the game at this point. He's a loose cannon, doesn't really know the game too well. I do wonder where he sits at this point in the game. For KJ as well, we haven't seen too much of her at all. So it's going to be interesting to see how she works. I do think the time for a women's alliance has sort of gone away at this point. Obviously, Shea, Chrissy, KJ, Sam, and Michelle outnumbered there by all the others. It's hard to say whether that will happen at the end of the day, because this six is prevailing at the end, and I can't see anyone breaking them up at this point. We'll bring up the confessional count for this week, courtesy of Jonathan Gray on Twitter. If you aren't following him already, definitely give him a look over there. What we've seen, obviously, as we mentioned before, Mel and Michelle did get confessionals this week. Mel receiving a massive 5 confessionals in episode 14 there, 3 in episode 13 as well, putting her almost on par, just above rather, her sister on 8 confessionals, Michelle with 7. David, though, still without a confessional since episode 4. It has now been 10 episodes since we've seen any content from David. And I do think at this stage, the writing really is on the wall for David. And I hope we get to see more of him, just as we said last week with Mel and Michelle not getting any content. But certainly, I do worry for David. It certainly doesn't look like he's winning at this point in the game, just based off the edit that he is getting. At this point, guys, we will wrap it up here, as we have lost Robin on the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this week of Australian Survivor. And of course, we'll be back next week with recap of episodes 15 and 16 of Australian Survivor week 6 of the show. Of course, Survivor 42 as well is coming back next week. That returns Thursday, 8 p.m. on 9Go for you guys in Australia. Of course, 8 p.m. local time in the US. I think it's 8/7 Central in the US for Eastern Time and Central Time viewers. We will be having a Survivor 42 kickoff show this year. It'll be on the hour before the premiere of Survivor 42 in the US. I'll be there, as well as the Survivor buffs, of course, Adam and Gideon. Also joining us will be Phil and Alexa, the Survivor specialists, as well as Peridium, idled out, Coach Drew, who does the reality hot takes on Reality Pop, and potentially a couple of other special Survivor contestants might pop in to say hello. So certainly go and check that out. If you do want to support us, please feel free to give this video a like, and of course, subscribe to the channel for more podcasts just like this. Of course, as I said before, Survivor 42 is coming back next week, so we will have podcasts. Gideon and Adam will be recapping all of those episodes, and we hope you guys join us for those episodes. Of course, if you do want to support us as well, there is an option there to join the channel as a member. Special shout out to Barry Dean and the Hangout Room for joining us as members. With the membership, we do offer you guys, if you want to, at some stage in the postseason when we do our post-game interviews, our deep dives with the contestants, we will offer the opportunity for you guys to sit in on those if you do wish to do so. And certainly excited to see who we can get on for a deep dive when it does come to Blood vs. Water finishing up. But of course, we've still got 11 players left in the game at this point. It's going to be very interesting to see how the game shakes out. And of course, with a couple more non-elimination twists, as is the specialty on Australian Survivor, we'll see it all happen in the coming weeks. And look forward to you guys joining us. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you all next week. Goodbye.